everybody, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. Corey Seidman and Jim Salisbury with you as the Phillies continue this road trip, which got off to a pretty good start in St. Louis as the Phillies played what felt like their quickest game in years. It was like 2 hours and 25 minutes. Zack Wheeler and Adam Wainwright. Wheeler with just an absolute gem. And we saw some more big offense out of Rhys Hoskins. But, Jim, let's start with Zack Wheeler because, that was, as you wrote, probably the best start he's made as a Philly so far, huh?
I believe so. He's made 16 starts as a Philly. Of course, last year was a shortened season, made 11. And I think it was his best one. He was probably headed for the best start of his career. He was working on a one-hit shutout into the ninth inning with, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. Had 2 walks at that point and went out and walked the first batter of the ninth inning. He was at 114 pitches. Joe got him out of there with his gem intact. And Hector Neris made us all a little bit nervous there, but Zack Wheeler was really excellent. And one thing that stuck out was the power fastball, the command down in the zone was just excellent. And I think that was something that had been missing a little bit in his first few starts. And I think he probably, and he admitted this, he carried some extra motivation into that game because in his previous start, the previous Tuesday at home against the Giants, he failed to protect a 4-run lead in the middle innings, gave up 3 home runs in the middle innings, and they ended up losing that game. Connor Brogdon had a really rough 8th inning, and a lot of people pointed at Connor Brogdon, a lot of people pointed at Joe Girardi for leaving him in there, but Zack Wheeler pointed at himself and said that he was the reason they lost that game for not locking down that lead. He said last night he really wanted to come out there and get the Phillies a W, and he did that. He really set the tone all night. They didn't get much offense. 2 home runs from Rhys Hoskins, which was huge. He's on a tear. But they didn't need a lot of offense because Zack Wheeler really pitched so well, and he had to because Adam Wainwright on the other side pitched great. I mean, first time all year, 2 starting pitches in the same game have gone, 8 innings. Tells you a little bit about pitching and the state of pitching and the way pitching is deployed these days. But, a really good win for the Phillies. It evened them up on the road at 2-2, evened them up for the season at 2-2. And one of the things I wrote about this, after that game that really struck me is if they're still in Denver where they were over the weekend, that game is not a victory. It's their worst loss of the season. And maybe we can chat about that.
Do you mean just because the thin air in Denver, Nolan Arenado's long flyout would have carried even farther?
It would have landed in the street. Hector on Friday night hung a split to Raimel Tapia, and he hits it for a walk-off home run in Colorado. Kind of just, flicks the bat, gets the bat head on it. When you get the ball in the air there, it goes out in Denver. Arenado, that ball, it was another hanging splitter, first pitch splitter. Came off the bat at 100 miles an hour, which qualifies as hard hit. According to the data, it went 388 feet. In the light air of Denver, I think you can add probably 30 feet to that ball, and 25, 30 feet to that ball. It's in the seats, and the Cardinals fans are going crazy. The Cardinals are walking off the field, and you've lost your second walk-off game on the trip. So it was like, whew, you wipe your brow, you walk off shaking hands, but boy, deep down inside, if I'm Joe Girardi, I have to wonder about my commitment to Hector Neris as the closer. I just do.
And by that, you mean, Hector Neris has saved 4 games here, and he had to stumble the other night in Colorado. Do you just mean based on his track record that, when he's shown that he can be good for a month and then bad for a month and then good for a couple weeks and bad for a couple weeks? Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yeah, it is. And that split is his pitch, and it's a tough pitch to command. Right now, it's hanging a lot. It's hanging a lot, and teams are banging it. So usually when he kind of goes bad, it goes bad. So maybe he's got it out of his system, and but Alvarado's back. He returned from the COVID protocol list on Monday night in St. Louis. He was up in the bullpen, which I think was good. Air it out a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me to see, I know they're going to use him. Obviously, they need him. I wonder if he might get a save opportunity here. But, I mean, for the Phillies' sake, maybe Hector can right himself. That would be the ultimate solution. It's just like, wow, it's always in the back of your mind. There's just so seldom are there really easy, smooth ninth innings, and with Hector. And it would have been a crime to have lost that game just because Zack Wheeler was so good.
Well, Zack Wheeler's been easy and smooth for like most of his tenure as a Philly so far. 16 starts as a Philly. He has a 2.98 ERA. And how about this? He's averaged 6.5 innings per start, which that's a notable number these days when you're used to seeing like 5.5 or something just south of 6. This was a big contract the Phillies signed Wheeler to. 5 years, $118 million. Some people looked at it sideways because, it was based more on potential than like track record or years of results. But I can't imagine the Phillies have any buyer's remorse to this point of the deal, huh?
No way, nor should they. And I did not look at the deal sideways. Yes, it was a lot of money for a guy who had some injury history and a guy who had some inconsistency. Yes, they were kind of banking that he was ready to turn the corner and really, cash in on all that great potential that he has. But they were so desperate for starting pitching, and they haven't developed any starting pitching, or at least enough of it, that they had to go out there and do business and take a chance on a guy that you thought was going to turn the corner and become a real quality starter. Take a chance on his stuff because they just don't develop enough guys. So it just goes back to the point we've made over and over. They need to really start developing their own starting pitching so they don't have to do business on the free agent market and take big money chances on potential guys that have been hurt but still have a lot of upside like Wheeler. And obviously he's showing that upside, and he's really delivering. So no buyer's remorse, and I understood the purchase at the time, and I understood the sticker price, and hats off to the people who made the signing. It's been a good one. He's a real serious competitor who wants to be good and has been good. It seems like he's over a lot of the inconsistency and the health issue, and he's in the second year of a 5-year deal. And to me, it looks like a good signing.
Apropos of nothing, but how there was this whole like brouhaha over the weekend with Trevor Bauer and Fernando Tatis. Not really brouhaha, but like they were making gestures back and forth to each other. It just made me think like I could never imagine Aaron Nola or Zack Wheeler doing a strut after a strikeout, or putting a fake sword in there. Those are two guys who are just very even keeled and mild mannered and just go out and do their job.
Yeah, when the teacher passed out the thing with the electives on it, and you had to check off what electives you wanted, neither one of them checked off drama club. They were in the wood shop with their head down, grinding it out. So yeah, no theatrics with those two guys. Zach Eflin as well. Bryce Harper, he's got some theatrics and it works for him. But those couple pitchers you mentioned, head down, and in a lot of ways they're sports writers' delight after the game because they don't ramble on when they answer your question. They answer it directly, and it's usually 2 or 3 sentences, and so there's not a lot of words to transcribe. They're both they're both fairly men of few words, but they give you a good read on their performance. They're hard on themselves when they have to be, and they're insightful when they have to be, or often insightful. But they do it with an economy of words, much like they pitch when they're on top of their game.
Well, sticking in the rotation now, it looks like the Phillies are going to stretch Spencer Howard out as a starter, kind of out of necessity, just based on the way that this first month has gone for the back end of the Phillies rotation. That wasn't like specifically in their plans these first couple of weeks because of the innings workload that they want to monitor with him, right? So, like, how do you envision this going forward this season?
Yeah, I went back and reread some of the stuff that Dave Dombrowski said, like 3.5 weeks ago, coming out of spring training, and they said, we're going to use him as a reliever, but we're going to make sure he gets enough time to warm up because he hasn't grown up as a reliever, and they want to protect his arm. using him as a reliever, they thought would be a way to get something out of him, some contribution while watching his innings limits. They sent him back to the minor league alternate site on Monday, and they're going to start stretching him out. So possibly he can make some starts for them. So they've reversed course or changed course. And why? Really, I think it's desperation. They've seen what they've gotten out of the 4 or 5 spots in the rotation. Vinny Velasquez is going to have to make, he's basically the 6th guy to make a start now, and he's going to make his second one here on Wednesday night. We know how inconsistent he has been. So the lack of production and the troubling performance in the 4 and 5 spot has led them to take Spencer Howard and stretch him out so he could become a starting pitching option if things don't turn around in the 4 and 5 spot. They're really desperate for starting pitching depth. Hopefully down the road, Spencer Howard is a lot more than starting pitching depth. Hopefully he's a difference maker, but we were thinking probably next year on that. But it looks like if Chase Anderson and Matt Moore, Vinny Velasquez, if they don't really shore up that 4th and 5th spot, then at some point here, Spencer Howard is going to be in play. That's where that stands.
Well, Rhys Hoskins has been a major difference maker in this month of April. Leads Major League Baseball with 8 home runs entering the second game of this Cardinals series. Provided all the offense Monday night with those 2 solo homers off of Wainwright. It's been notable to me that he's hitting these homers to center and to left center and to right center. Something we've talked about often, kind of dating back to the midpoint of last season with Hoskins. But I don't know, to this point in the season, I know it's very early. He's going to go through a slump. There's going to be a time, maybe 4 or 5 weeks from now, where the conversation about Rhys Hoskins is totally different. But as of right now, he looks like a more complete hitter, a different hitter than we've seen in the past. Yeah,
he started to turn the corner, last year. I think you wrote about it the other day. You and I are kind of aligned. I think it turned on that Steven Matz double the other way with the bases loaded against the Mets last year at Citizens Bank Park. It was a pitch away, and he just, head down, stayed right on it and drove it. And, previously he would have tried to pull that ball and it would have rolled it over or yanked it up in the seats or popped it up. He's hitting the ball, where it's pitched. The balls he's supposed to be driving to right center, he's doing that. I have no qualms with Rhys Hoskins pulling the ball. Just make sure it's a pitch that is supposed to be pulled. Actually, he pulled that hanging breaking ball last night, Monday night against Wainwright. Pulled it to left field, and that's what you're supposed to do with a breaking ball that hangs on the inside part of the plate. That's where you open up and drive it up into Big Mac territory. And then later in the game, he hit one to center field. And then we've seen, earlier on this trip, I saw him drive a ball to right center that was, away. So, he looks like he's really when you're doing that, it's an indication that you're seeing it and picking it up well. And you're not just trying to pull the ball. You're taking what the pitch gives you and doing what you should be doing with it. So he's on a really, really good roll. Leads baseball. He's up to 8 home runs now. Leads the majors, I believe. A good roll for Rhys Hoskins, and he gets on them, and you're like, okay, what's he going to do tonight?
Well, I'm looking at the PointsBet lines for this Phillies Cardinals game, our friends over at PointsBet, and a couple of them stick out to me. One, Rhys Hoskins is plus 300 to hit a home run, which, that's pretty short. That just speaks to like how locked in he is at the plate. And I think that also pays attention to, like, over the course of his career, that when he goes on these power binges, that's when he's most likely to hit another one. It's not like they're sporadic. They seem to come in bunches. The other one is that the longest odds for a Phillies player to get a hit tonight in the second game of the series, Andrew McCutchen at minus 240 to get a hit. McCutchen has really struggled. He was replacing the leadoff spot in Monday's game with Brad Miller. I'm just curious how much more you think we're going to see of that, or are the Phillies committed to getting McCutchen going out at the top spot?
Well, I think Joe Girardi is still committed to getting Andrew going. I mean, I know there's impatience and urgency, but we're still early in the season. But despite being committed, they're not going to be committed forever. And maybe putting Brad Miller in left field and batting him leadoff Monday night was a preview of things to come. He does hit right-handed pitching, there is room for a platoon there with McCutchen and Miller if McCutchen doesn't get it going. I think their preference is to give McCutchen a little more space here to see if he can get going, but I don't think they will wait forever.
Well, the other guy that a lot of Phillies fans are talking about right now is Nick Maton, just based on the hot start he's had to begin his career. It was a great stat they had in the Phillies broadcast that he's the first Philly to begin his career with a 6-game hitting streak since Jimmy Rollins. I'm just wondering, like, when Ronald Torreyes is ready to come back, would it surprise you if the Phillies kept Nick Maton as their utility man?
No, I could see a situation where they kept Torreyes and sent Kingery back to the alternate site so he could get some more at-bats and continue to work on those adjustments. So I think I've seen enough, and they've seen enough of Nick Maton that they'd like to keep him around. He's played really well offensively and defensively. Last night, I mean, that rocket ate him up there in the 9th inning, one Harper at his feet. I mean, if he makes that, that's a much easier 9th inning. You got a double play ball. Tough play. It was scored a hit. I'm sure he didn't feel good about it. But that said, he's played very, very well.
And so Odubel Herrera was in the Phillies lineup Monday night, made his season debut. He was called up from the alternate site as Mickey Moniak was sent down. Obviously, this was a difficult decision for the Phillies. They went to 3 center fielders before turning to Herrera. To kind of walk us through that decision and what you think is going to happen moving forward the next few weeks in center field.
I think Odubel's going to get a shot to play and a shot to play every day and a shot to lock that job down. They need somebody to lock it down. As you mentioned, they're on their 4th one, their 4th center fielder. I just don't think he did enough to force his way onto the team in spring training. They decided that, give him some more at-bats at the alternate site. And I think deep down inside, given the baggage, the PR matters that are attached to Odubel, I think that they were very, very hopeful that, one of the 3 guys that they trotted out there to start the season would take hold of the job. But, they exhausted those scenarios, and now they've moved on to number 4, and that's Odubel Herrera. I think he's the most talented guy out of that bunch. The talent is obvious, but, he has not really played much in 23 months. Almost 2 full years. And, he was an all-star in 16, but, he fell off in 18 and 19. So a lot of his recent time on the baseball field is a question mark, in terms of he didn't play well, then he was suspended. So he's got a lot to prove baseball-wise. He's got a lot to prove, obviously, character-wise. And we'll see. I know he made a contribution last night because that ball came off Arenado's bat, and I thought it was gone. Joe Girardi said he thought it was gone. Zack Wheeler admitted he thought it was gone. Rhys Hoskins, standing at first base, thought it was gone. All of those guys spoke after the game. Odubel ran it down, made a tough catch. I'm sure his heart was beating a million miles a second. So he made a contribution on night 1. And he's going to get an opportunity to make more contributions because Roman Quinn, Adam Hazley, and Mickey Moniak didn't make enough of them.
Hey, one guy that we really haven't talked about here in a couple of weeks is Alec Bohm, who doesn't seem like he's in a great place at the plate right now. He's hitting .205. Only 2 of his last 19 games have been multi-hit games. It's pretty surprising. It's kind of fallen under the radar a little bit because he's driven in runs. He has 12 RBIs this season. What are you seeing right now with Bohm at the plate?
Well, in the field, if I could digress, he made that play he made last night for the second out in the 9th inning. I mean, that was a skyrocket. When that ball goes up above the stadium, it always spins back toward the mound or spins back toward home plate. And he overran it. And then now he's got to bend and pretzel this 6'6" frame, reach back over his head and make an acrobatic play. That was a huge, huge play. So he made a contribution in his own way there. I don't know. I don't know what I'm seeing at the plate, to be honest with you. Maybe just trying to do a little too much. At times his swing doesn't appear as smooth. He had a home run in the last homestand where killed it like left center. Just this beautiful smooth swing. And I think maybe he's gotten out of that just by maybe pressing a little bit, trying to do too much. Very, very natural, very, very understandable when you're struggling. And you and I talked about this on a recent podcast when you were touting him as the league leader in doubles. I said, Every guy goes through it, right? He played 44 games last year, and he was great. Tip your hat to him. But the guys on the mound are really good. The guys watching on video are really good. The guys watching behind the backstop, the scouts are really good. They can come up with a game plan to attack you. At some point, he's going to have to adjust with the league. He's probably going to scuffle a little bit. Everybody does. It's the toughest game in the world. And the good ones learn from their struggles and become better. And I still think he has the aptitude that, he will learn from this, what Jim Fregosi used to call a mix-up. He's in a little mix-up, and he'll learn from this and become better for it.
Jim, are you a believer that Madison Bumgarner's 7-inning no-hitter should be a no-hitter? What do you think?
I believe it's a 7-inning no-hitter. And why can't you recognize it as such? There are 9-inning no-hitters. There are 7-inning no-hitters. In 2020, they instituted a rule and had 7-inning doubleheaders. And on a 7-inning game, you could have a 7-inning no-hitter. Shake his hand, give him a champagne bottle. You pitch a 7-inning no-hitter. Recognize it that way. It's you go 7 no-hit innings. That's quite an accomplishment, right?
So you'd put them into 2 different groups then, with your 7-inning no-hitters and your 9-inning no-hitters separately?
Why not? What's the big deal? What's the big deal?
Well, I think it's going to be an even bigger deal when someone throws a 7-inning perfect game. I mean, that's when I think the conversation is going to get even louder because of how much rarer those are.
It'll give us something to write about, something to talk about on the Phillies Talk podcast. It'll give the folks on Talk Radio something to talk about, argue about, hash it around. You pitch 7 no-hit innings. You pitch 7 innings these days. You've done a pretty good job.
Yeah. How about this league-wide offensive decline? I mean, it was surprising to me the other day that Sunday. So the Phillies, through their first 20 games, really haven't hit much. Yet they entered Sunday 5th in the majors in batting average and 6th in on-base percentage, which is crazy because they're like 240 and like 315 in those numbers, and yet they're at the top of the league. I know we've talked about this over the last few years of the pitching ahead of the hitting and all the velocity in the game, but it just feels more pronounced now than ever before.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we're seeing that these guys, just in the last 5-6 years, have just added so much velocity to their fastballs. And by the same token, I think swings have gotten bigger, and that's not necessarily a good mix. That big fastball with the big swing. I think that, you're trying to increase offense with the big swing, but you get diminishing returns. I also think the weather's been cold. And I think at some point it will turn around, but it is astonishing that the Phillies are where they are with their team batting average, et cetera, and rank, well above average with what we've seen. But it's indicative of everything being down. Girardi talks about it all the time, that he's shocked by the numbers. I do think we will see more offense, but it's a game with a lot of big velocity, and we saw it with Zack Wheeler on Monday night. On the other side, we did, Wainwright. He really relied on that great breaking ball that he's had forever. I was at that game in 2006 when I think he was a rookie or second-year guy with the Cardinals, and he was a closer, and he dropped that hammer on Carlos Beltran. So he's been throwing it a long time, but good pitching will stop good hitting. And right now we've seen good pitching. Maybe it's just a case of them being ahead of the hitters. Maybe it's a case of these big velocities. Maybe it's a case of difference in approach of hitters. But you would like to see some more offense. But that said, we had a great pitchers duel Monday night, and I found it exciting.
And the Phillies have 2 more really good ones going in this series. Zach Eflin pitches Tuesday night, and Aaron Nola starts the series finale Thursday. And the Phillies are back home for a 7-game homestand against the Mets and the Brewers. But that month of May is spent mostly on the road. That's going to do it for this Phillies Talk podcast. He's Jim Salisbury. I'm Corey Seidman. Talk to you again this weekend.